Welcome to Mythbusters Master B2B. This is a format where we take an industry expert and put them on the hot seat. My name is Brian Beck. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Andy Hoare, my partner in the Master B2B Thought Leadership Series. For those of you who don't know Andy, he is a longtime industry expert. He ran e-commerce, B2B e-commerce practice at Forrester Research for 7 years. He's a CEO of Paradigm B2B, where they evaluate e-commerce platforms. He's on speed dial with CEOs all over the world. Andy, it's great to be here on this next session of our Mythbusters series.
Well, speed dial implies people still use phones. Do people still use phones?
Some do.
Well, I'm joined today by Brian Beck, my partner on Master B2B. And for those who know Brian, he's the author of a really good book called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce. He's also a practitioner for many years, has been a consultant, and he's now a thought leader in this space. Dangerous phrase. So anyway, Brian, great to be here. And we've got a great one lined up.
I'll tell you, Andy, this is such a hot topic. I mean, the whole concept of headless and composable commerce and the approach here, which is so much buzz in the industry. I mean, we posted about this a couple of times on LinkedIn and just lots of conversations around the industry. And in fact, when we designed these Mythbusters sessions, Andy, we said, gosh, we get, a few dozen folks involved in them. Great. But I mean, we've got hundreds of people signed up today. So, thanks all for tuning in. We appreciate your time and interest in this topic. So we're going to get right to it because this is a quick hitting session. This is only a 30-minute session. So let's get into our hot seat. Who do we have on the hot seat today? Oh man, that is a terrifying place. Well, we have to welcome Michael. Andy, you want to go ahead and introduce Michael? Michael, I hope you got your neoprene suit on, man.
Got that one.
Yeah, so we're joined today by Michael. We call him the Menacer Schultz because he's actually been on an unwebinar before, and so he's earned the title of the Menacer. But today we're going to do the menacing. And what we're going to do is like I said, we got him in the hot seat. So we're going to ask him a bunch of questions about headless, and we're going to address the third rail topic of cost and complexity. So Michael, for those who don't know, Michael is, let's see, what's his title? The Global Director and Head of Product Marketing at Commerce Tools. Earlier in a career, he was also on the vendor side at SAP, so he's checked that box. He's also been, he's worked for systems integrators, so he's checked that box. And interestingly enough, he was an entrepreneur when he lived in Australia. So maybe we'll hear something about that at some point, but he's going to need everything today to take the heat from us. So welcome, Michael.
That's right. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I almost took my son's Paw Patrol fire helmet here. It looks hot. It's going to be hot.
You should have, man. Well, so listen, and one thing I want to mention to the audience before we get into the questions with Michael, we want questions from you. So we had some questions in advance in the Q&A box. Please go ahead and put your questions for Michael. And we're going to talk through some questions from Andy and I first, but please submit them and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. And this is such a hot topic. So Michael, I'm going to ask the first question, the burning question, right? I think it's the whole sort of topic of this whole Mythbusters session. So headless, it promises to offer so much flexibility to companies in terms of being able to deploy commerce in many different places. But some practitioners report that it takes longer and it costs more. And the result of sort of that longer time frame of getting a product to market with the headless approach can lead to more expense. So is that true? Is that a myth? Or tell us from your experience whether or not that is valid or invalid.
Yeah, so I think from my experience, it's definitely a myth. I think headless or the whole composable approach really allows you to go as fast as you actually can as a manufacturer, as a B2B business. I think you can go faster actually because you're building and implementing something the way that it suits your business. Yes, you need to do a discovery and you need to architect it and plan it out well, but sometimes when you have these old legacy, all-in-one monolithic type solutions, you almost have to do 3 times the effort. Number one, you have to do the discovery to figure out what you actually want to do. 2, you have to do the discovery, and that's usually part of the sort of RFP, RFI selection or vendor selection cycle. You have to figure out what can the e-com platform actually do. And then you have to figure out, you almost have to do a discovery on how you need to customize the e-com platform to fit whatever business processes that you want to do. So I think you're actually spending more time trying to figure out what you want to do and how you can do it with the platform at hand. And you almost have to figure out like how you have to customize it, how you have to build workarounds on some of the limitations of these platforms, because the platform itself is fair enough, but think about all the other additional systems that you need in the broader ecosystem, right? You might need a PIM, you might need a content management system. For all we know, you're like in a B2B company that still works with catalogs and you have a digital asset management system. So figuring all of that out and how it is aligned and versioned and backwards compatible, I think you're planning for something that is already not fitting your business. So I think you can actually go pretty quickly with a headless or composable approach.
Yeah, but Michael, by definition, headless requires multiple solutions, right? So multiple solutions implies multiple costs, doesn't it? I mean, if you have an all-in-one solution, a lot of those costs are amortized or baked into an all-in-one solution. So by definition, it would be less expensive, wouldn't it? I mean, if you have a headless solution, you require multiple solutions. That means more money, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, headless just by definition is the decoupling of front and back end, right? So by definition, you're making two out of one. But it was never really one to begin with because it's always a bundle of products, of multiple modules. Yes, you got it from one vendor, but that doesn't mean you can get it from one vendor now. I think about it, again, same point as earlier. It's a product catalog or a PIM or a digital asset management system, the commerce engine, the content management system, the marketplace. There are multiple vendors that offer both the front and the back end, or maybe even broader bits and pieces out of the ecosystem. I think the real opportunity here is you can decouple the front end and the back end, and that's by no means a new notion of any kind. But I think the decision to go headless also offers you the opportunity to build something yourself or leverage accelerators that you can go there and build something faster or propagate your product and sales data into a marketplace. Maybe you are a business that doesn't even need a front end because you're just sending product data to a marketplace. You never know. So why would you pay for a front end? I think even the vendors that offered everything in sort of out of one hand or out of one contract, I mean, they're not going to leave money on the table. They will charge you for each of the different bits and pieces that you're going to use. But the thing is, though, you're always going to use something more or less. I mean, to be honest, for me, this whole headless theme really reminds me of the sort of early 2000s, 2005, 2010, when we were still working around with BlackBerries. That was the industry standard, right? And then 07, the iPhone came out, and all of a sudden, iPhones and Android devices were used, and you can bring them to work and bring your own device. Same thing with headless, right? You're giving your businesses and your users choice. You give them customer experience, superior usability, speed, and you're not even compromising on security or access to backend systems. And it really, to hone in on the cost aspect, I think you're 100% right? There's this myth, there's this notion that managing multiple vendors is at a higher cost. And I'm not saying it's not necessarily. I'm just simply saying you're probably already doing that to some sort of best of breed approach anyway. Even if you work with one solution provider, getting everyone out of one hand is very hard. So I think there's this notion about this extra work and the costs have to climb. Yet whether it's business or private life, I think we're probably already seeking better solutions if one vendor doesn't provide us what we require.
All right, Michael, I'm not sure I fully buy it because you just said, you basically just said the myth is a reality. That said, we're getting questions in here from Lindsay, right? So Lindsay, thank you for these questions. They're really good. And actually I had the same question, which is, you were talking about time to market and, you're talking about the fact you don't have to spend all this time on an RFP. And Lindsay was asking this question, wouldn't headless still require an RFP? Or what I was thinking about, the angle I was thinking about is, doesn't it still require you to know what the heck you're building? In other words, you still need requirements. You still need to know what you're building against. So how does that save time? If you're, don't you still have to go through that whole process of understanding? I don't get it. I don't buy it. How does it save time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been part of a couple of really, really long discoveries. I've worked with one of the biggest car manufacturers in the US, and I think the discovery took about 3 months, literally just noting down the requirements. I think with headless, or especially these sort of headless commerce platforms, you can just choose to adopt the business processes or the microservices that you need. Nobody in this day and age should build their own promotion, their own discount, their own card object, their own checkout functionality, right? Those are standard business processes. I would even call them commodities in a way. So the commodities at some point at the end of the day are going to be all the same. They're going to be 98% the same. The question is just like, is this a vendor that you trust? Can this vendor give you the performance, the scalability, the security? And I think you still can then pick out the different business processes or microservices to build out your desired e-commerce platform. And I think the difference here is if you go with one of those all-in-one platforms, you have to conform and you have to abide by the business processes. So at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, how unique is your business? How standard is your business? And are you okay with that answer? And based on that, are you okay with conforming to an e-commerce platform that gets you 80, 90% there? Or do you want to be more flexible? Do you want to build this around? But the time aspect that you're alluding to is if you have to figure out not only how to select the vendor, which you would do in both cases, I agree, but then also how to figure out if this platform can actually do it and in the way that you want and in the way the business process is set up, or you have to customize it and build a workaround. That's where the extra time comes in. And some of these all-in-one solutions are very clunky in that aspect, and that takes time.
Got it. So okay, fair enough. Let's talk about resourcing though. So we talk about internal, external resourcing, and we've been told by practitioners that the headless, you need more resources, right? You need to have, because it's more of a toolkit. It's not all sort of built for you. Don't you need more resources, and doesn't that end up costing you more?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen much of a difference in the cost and the total cost of the implementation, because whether you need the architects to know their way around SAP, for example, and their B2B offering, or a BigCommerce or a Magento, at the end of the day, you still need architects who tie it all back together and put a pretty bow around it, right? I think the architect aspect is the same. I think the practitioner is just easier because you don't need to find these very, very expensive resources that are required because they have proprietary software programming languages. With this API approach and having software development kits, you can literally code in every single language you want. You don't actually need a whole army of developers to do so.
All right, let me hold you there because we have one question, Andy. I don't know if you saw it come in here. It's from Jamin Heller. Jamin, thanks for the question. I'm going to read you what he says. Having a single e-commerce platform has historically reduced the complexity of technical architecting. Composable or headless seems to require having a technical expert to put it all together. Who would do this on a small, non-technical team? Would we need to hire an expensive consultant or agency? It's getting right to the cost question. What say you, Michael?
Yeah, I think I think those experts you need in any case. I mean, nobody can build a Salesforce B2B business just up from scratch by reading a couple of dummy books, right? Same with Magento. I mean, you need experts that are e-commerce experts that know B2B and that can almost like abstract and simplify what you're doing. But whether it's a composable or headless platform, whether it's a Salesforce, Magento, you name it, always you need experts, whether these are in-house or external, whether it's an agency or like a system integrator, those people are always available. My point here is, given that there's no requirement on the actual programming language, that the fact that there's no proprietary language, A, there's more people available, and B, these people come at a lower cost. So that just beats it out for me every single day.
Well, Doug Topkin is challenging the moral equivalency issue as well, saying that he literally said from Pool Corp that, there never was a one thing. he says that the one kind of monolithic solution was never an effective solution to begin with. That's another discussion for another day. But there is one thing that you can't challenge about this notion, is that upgrades and enhancements are much easier to do on an all-in-one system because it happens at one time in that system, versus imagine having multiple systems kind of pieced together, however you do it in some headless environment. What do you say to the critics who say that the enhancement and upgradability is just far more complicated with headless?
That is actually the number one point that I think is so much easier with a headless or composable software approach, simply because most, if not all, of the vendors that are buying into this headless composable approach and that are literally approved as we believe in kind of like the MACH, kind of like the microservices architecture kind of like approach, all of them are software as a service based. All of them are versionless. So there's not even a notion of updates or upgrades. There's not even a cost associated with that. So you're always on the latest release. You always have the latest functionality and features available. The notion that you have to spend...
I got to interrupt on this one. In theory, that's correct. In reality, that's not true. Is it?
Yeah. I mean,
at just magically, everybody's always on the latest version of everything, and it all works swimmingly with unicorns and butterflies.
Yep, 100%. No, I'm serious about that, because the way that the multi-tenancy is set up from an architecture perspective, the way that these features roll out, every single customer at any given moment in time is eligible for all the different features. It's just a matter of how you want to consume these features. But the notion of going, hey, I need to upgrade to the latest release, I need to plan for it on my roadmap for 6 to 9 months, and I need to spend $500,000 or $1 million on that every 2 years, and those days are gone. You're always on the latest release. The fact that every other bits or point solution in that ecosystem is also SaaS-based, you don't even need to worry about the infrastructure. You don't need to even worry about like security, scalability, performance. All of that is accessible to you, and you almost take it for granted.
You know, it's interesting, Michael. We just got Girish Sakukar just chimed in. Andy here, Girish, a friend of ours. We have 0 architects on our team and just 4 developers, and we have a completely composable stack. It's easier to do headless than most people think. Michael, I'm sure you didn't pay him off, but that's obviously.
I think I need to start doing that.
You may need to start. But we have a question here from Stephen Javor from Schneider Electric. Stephen, thanks for chiming in. Doesn't headless really provide more capabilities to create a true omni-channel environment, acquire and analyze online and offline data for a single customer view, regardless of the channel? I mean, it's framed as a question. Is that true, Michael, or not true? Omni-channel.
No, I think he is 100% spot on. I mean, this is the beauty of composable, because if you look at all the other competitors in the world there, Oracle, SAP, you name it, all of them were founded in like the mid 90s, 95, 97, I think was Hybris. They're sitting on 15 or 20-year-old code bases. At that time, we only had the desktop, we only had the terminal, and that was what these sort of solutions were designed for. These solutions didn't know about all the different channels, all the different kiosks, curbside pickup, click and collect. They didn't know about that. So how would they even have built the all-in-one solutions to prepare for that? So I think composable really allows you to add different channels and different touch points for any of your business partners or end users, depending on how you want to run your business, without compromising or even surfacing any of your backend architecture, systems, data, anything really. So I think it allows you to really go omni-channel.
Okay. We have an anonymous question here. It says, I'm not an IT person. So we have some folks who are not IT folks here on the line. But a question I have is, what infrastructure is required to make headless successful? For example, do you need to rely on APIs the company writes themselves? So it's just sort of understanding this from a business perspective. Michael, could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think there's 2 answers to that. So for the core functionality that you would either get from the commerce engine or from the surrounding ecosystem, you don't have to worry about the infrastructure as well, because each of the different vendors will take care of that. You don't see it, you don't touch it, you don't have access to it. The only thing that you're doing is you're communicating with their respective APIs. The second answer to that, or the second part to that question is, the code or the extra functionality that you want to write on top of that, this is the point where you really differentiate yourself from the competition. That you can run wherever you want. You can run it on Google, you can run it on Azure, you can run it in your own basement on a server for all the other vendors sort of care. That is completely up to you. But from the vendor side, you don't have to worry about it. You don't touch it. You don't feel it. You don't see it. So that's really the beauty, because all of that is abstracted to my earlier point around security, scalability, performance. You just take that for granted. Everything else where you want to make sure that this is your business process, this is where you're unique, this is where you want to differentiate yourself from the competition. This is where you can build out functionality and you can communicate with all the respective APIs. Where that stuff is hosted, I mean, it could be hosted in my living room on my PlayStation for all we care. It's really that simple.
Okay. Andy?
Do you have a PlayStation in your living room that you're hosting this stuff on?
I was wondering the same thing.
I think we would run into some compliance issues here, I think.
Quite possibly. So the Ricardo, the Sardinian Slayer Caruso, our friend from Cepheid, is asking a question here, and Cepheid is a big biotechnology company. What's your take, Michael, on replatforming? And if you go headless, he's thinking about TCO, total cost of ownership. How does he make the case to his senior leadership that headless is the right way to go? And thinking about total cost of ownership, not just the upfront, which we've talked about, but ongoing costs with all these vendors and all these resources that are potentially needed.
Yeah, I'm going to quote the CTO of Ashley Furniture. I know Ashley Furniture B2C. It's probably not the perfect time to bring the B2C company up here, but anyhow, the CTO said we chose commerce tools because we don't want to ever upgrade again. And that sort of really, I've never looked at it that way, and I probably should spend some more time on sort of digesting and rethinking that. But the fact is, to my earlier point, the whole notion of updates and upgrades is gone, because there is no more upgrades. Everything is versionless. Everything is always backwards compatible. The way that you're communicating between the different systems and the different applications is just via APIs. So everything always goes. So that's on kind of like the upgrade aspect of things. In terms of total cost of ownership, I think a total cost of ownership is only ever as good as the person that's creating it, right? And it's usually put into the favor of that company, of that vendor that is looking at the total cost of ownership. The way that I look at total cost of ownership is, I think the implementation costs are the same, if not lower, on the composable commerce or headless commerce approach. I think where the big hidden numbers are in terms of savings are, for me, the fact that you don't have to upgrade. So that $500,000, $1 million every single year or every 2 years, whenever the upgrade cycle is for that monolithic application, you don't have to spend for that. The 6 or 9 months to do the upgrade, you can actually spend innovating, being creative, building something else out, adding a new channel, doing whatever you want in your business. I think all the investments that you've already put into your company right now in terms of training people, that is not sunk cost, because with an headless or composable approach, again, it's just communicating via APIs, and each of the different vendors have SDKs, so you can write in .NET or Python or whatever your flavor of program language is. So everybody that is already in the company can work with that. So there's a lot of hidden costs that a typical all-in-one solution vendor wouldn't sort of necessarily share and open up. But updates, upgrades, people, all of them are big costs, and that's where I think the TCO is really on the side of headless or composable.
But you still have to manage even technology aside, you're managing multiple contracts, your relationships with multiple companies. I mean, headless means it's headless. You got, other solutions you're plugging into this thing. So any kind of thoughts to close that line of argument out?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's a fair point, and I think it's a fair consideration. But my argument is you're probably doing it already. You're working with different business partners. You're working with different vendors, right? I also think about it, if this is really such a big pain for a business in terms of like reviewing legal MSAs, what have you, I think it's also a one-time pain for a continuous flexibility advantage.
Gary says you got to bring in your own head to manage all the contracts. LOL. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. Thank you for contributing. And folks, we got 5 minutes left. So if you got burning questions, please send them in. This is great. One question I always get, Michael, when thinking about Headless is, with mid-market companies. I mean, you hear about, your Gear's big company. You talked about Ashley Furniture, biggest furniture company in the world. Can this reasonably be used for smaller mid-market companies? Do you have, Headless means there's no front end, right? Or is there a place to start for these mid-market companies? Is this even a feasible thing for a company who's not the size of Ashley Furniture or Cepheid or, Cardinal Health or whatever, big giant companies?
Or I would just add to that, because I think this is part of the argument too. What if you don't need all that stuff?
Right. That's the other thing.
Well, I think, Andy, that's actually the point of why you shouldn't go all in one. You're overpaying on a lot of the other stuff, but we had that conversation. In terms of what you're, I think, alluding to, Brian, is general, let's call it digital maturity, right? If you're in the mid-market space, do you have to be this early adopter, trailblazer in your sort of industry around digitization or digital transformation? I think it helps for sure. I think if you have that mindset, and if you either have that competency in-house, or if you have an agency or system integrator that you trust and you want to go to market with, and they have that sort of digital sort of maturity and can help you, I think it helps, but I don't think it's a requirement. I think we have examples where we have small, medium-sized customers. Some are coming over from Shopify, from BigCommerce, from VTEX, a lot of them with B2B flavors for sure. But they can all pull it off. I think they definitely have some help with like an agency or in-house staff that are just rock stars. But yeah, it's a fair point. At the end of the day, if you're a small or medium-sized company and you're just starting out, going composable from day one, you have to be very ambitious. You have to be very visionary. You have to be that digital, mature, kind of like thought leader, 100% hands down. I'm not even disagreeing that.
And you need rock stars to pull it off, Michael. You said that, so right?
Right.
Yeah, either you need sophisticated thinkers or you don't. And it seems like with the headless environment, it gives you more flexibility, more capability, arguably. We can discuss timing and cost, but it's not for the faint of heart, in that you have to be more of a visionary. And it's not a pejorative. That's a good thing. I want companies to be visionaries, but not all of them are. Right. And so they might struggle with this notion of, hey, I don't need all this, or I've got something that's more functionality than I can actually know what to do with. And it can be intimidating, can't it?
I think it can, and I think for the small and mid-sized market, we're going to see a lot of agencies that maybe have historically worked with the Magento community, the Oracle ATG community, and I think they will come up with their own set of accelerators. Agencies and system integrators have always built the accelerators, right? A blueprint to go quick, dirty, do it well, and fast and cheap, right? We've all done that. I think what this composable notion or journey will bring to the table is we will see more of those agencies come out with these blueprints for a composable architecture, and they will help small and medium-sized businesses to take this to market quickly and cost effectively. And I think there is going to be a new wave of these sort of type of accelerators that are coming out, whether these are for B2B, B2C, whether they're industry vertical focused. I think there's going to be a lot more coming out. The benefit of composability, though, is every single piece in that whole puzzle is replaceable and expendable. And that includes the e-commerce engine, right? If you build out your entire universe and you said, you know what, I'm a small, medium-sized B2B company, I'm currently sitting on BigCommerce and I'm using some of their B2B functionality, you could take BigCommerce out and you could choose Commerce Tools, for example. The same way if you wanted to go somewhere else for your CMS, for your digital asset management system, everything goes effectively. Everything is expendable, including the e-com platform.
All right, Michael, we're just about up on time. Listen, so you busted the myth. Well, we're actually going to ask our audience that question in a follow-up poll on LinkedIn. So stay tuned for that. Did Michael bust the myth or not? Headless is too expensive versus full stack solutions. So thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time, for being a good sport on the hot seat. Thank you so much. We will see you all on the next Master B2B session.